Welcome to the Weekly Squeak, my first live Weekly Squeak. If you are listening on the podcast later, welcome as well. My guest today is Anthony Woods of Grafana Labs. Welcome, Anthony.
Thanks, Chris. It's a pleasure to be here.
And if you have any questions, please add them in the chat. This being our first one, I don't know if anyone will join us, but it's a fun experiment. So, where do you join us from, Anthony?
Great question. So I'm in Perth in Western Australia. So it's a little bit late here, but I like it. I enjoy it.
It's not a place you often hear sort of CTOs of reasonably well-known tech companies to be coming from, is it?
No, definitely not. When we started, Grafana Labs, I was based in Singapore. That's a little bit makes more sense. And then since then, I've kind of just headed south down to Perth, so same time zone as Singapore. But this is where I'm originally from.
So can we claim Grafana as an Australian company or not?
So when we founded it, myself, Raj, Dutton, and Torkel, we couldn't have been further apart in the world of being tried. We had kind of all corners, covered. So we started off, day one as a multinational company.
So we should go back now, and I know Grafana pretty well. It's pretty well known in certain spaces, but let's start with the open source project and work our way up. What is Grafana and why might someone want to be using it?
Yeah, sure. So, Grafana is, probably the leading, open source solution for, dashboarding and visualization. It's a key component in people's observability stacks. It's kind of, Torkel, kind of started the project off, kind of scratching his own itch. They had kind of metrics. They wanted to know what was happening inside their applications and their environments, and wanted a better way to enable developers to get access to that information and get some useful insights. So it's about kind of that observability piece, bringing in started with metrics, right? So bringing in the metric piece, building some nice visualizations to show trends and data, and then we've built on top of that with support for logs and traces as well. And so part of the open source, we see this very large growing trend around getting more insight into what's happening in your environment, where you can solve problems faster and also understand how things are going and how changes are impacting your environment.
And was it one of these open source projects that came out of another company when you said to scratch their own itch? Like, where was that?
Yes. So Torkel himself, was a software consultant.
Okay.
So, he was working in lots of environments where, they were coming into these problems. And so, this is what they wanted to do. And originally it was built around Graphite, which was the open source time series database at the time. And then since then, we've built additional backend capabilities, and that's really where the power of Grafana is. Where you can bring in data from so many different places within your organization, whether they're open source, observability tools, or even your SQL databases. And then we have Grafana Enterprise that extends into the enterprise backends, where you can get more data, whether it's observability or even some moving into the business intelligence space as well, and bringing in data from across the organization.
What is time series databases are fairly popular at the moment, and there's quite a lot of them around. But what are the sorts of? It's obviously not a graphing and dashboarding solution for every use case. So, what are some common time series databases type things I'm trying to investigate?
Sure. So, the key part of the time series database, what time series is, it's about, just periodically measuring something over time. So you typically have like an identifier for the thing that you're measuring. And then, maybe every 30 seconds or 15 seconds or even higher resolution, you will record a value. So a common one is, like number of, active users you might have. And so then you can kind of plot that over time and see how it changes. And so, there's a lot of options. for how you do that, we certainly see, the leading one at the moment is Prometheus, and it's really focused around, application, metrics. So, understanding what's happening in your application, and, that kind of requires, developers to instrument their application and emit certain measurements and timing for different events that are happening inside the application. And then, the other part of that is your infrastructure piece. So, what is your CPU usage, memory usage, etc. And Prometheus has been great with, the Kubernetes use case. It's where we've really seen explosion. Everyone's moving towards Kubernetes, and Prometheus is designed for that use case and just works so well.
So, why do you think Prometheus? Why do you think Grafana became so popular relatively quickly? Was it just a timing, or is it a more fundamental reason, or just the best option, or a bit of both?
I mean, I think, anytime there's, the kind of success we've seen here, it's never one thing. I think timing is certainly a big part of it, but I think the thing that really differentiated Grafana from the alternatives was around just ease of use and how it looked. Very typically, traditionally, open source projects have terrible user interfaces and UIs. So they've got great features, but they don't always look great. And, the really big difference was, Grafana looks really great, makes it very easy to bring data in. It looks attractive. We've seen great popularity of people putting it on their big, TV screens in the office, and other teams walk in and see it and go, oh, wow, I want that. I want to have that too. And so, I think that's been a major kind of, contributor to the success for sure.
Okay. And actually, this is something I think I always forget, that Grafana Labs is not just responsible for Grafana. It's also responsible for Prometheus, Cortex, Graphite. They're the main ones, but so which came first, I guess, as well on that chain?
Yeah, so Grafana started off first, and as I mentioned earlier, started with the Graphite open source project as an alternative, UI and visualization and dashboarding tool for that, and then we kind of built on top of that. So, so the Prometheus project started off at SoundCloud. We it's not our project, but we do contribute quite heavily to it. We've got I think I can't remember the exact number, 6 or 7 or 8 or something maintainers on the project, and then Cortex then is the kind of distributed, scalable Prometheus backend. Again, that's part of the CNCF project as well, but we have the majority of the maintainers on that as well. Kind of keep supporting that. And then in addition to that, we also have Loki, which is our logging solution that, it's kind of, we talk about it as like Prometheus, but for logs. So it has a very simple model, using the same kind of labeling system, and is really efficient in the way that it stores logs. So you can throw huge volumes at it and keep the cost of storing it really low, because we don't index the logs on the content of the messages. We index based on just the label values. So it works really great in the Kubernetes environment. And then within Grafana, what's great is you can kind of transition between. So you can start looking at metrics and then flip over to a view using those same labels and see the logs, right? So you can kind of drill down to where the specific problem is. And then the latest project that we announced last year is Tempo, which is our distributed tracing solution. So you're taking the same kind of model, storing the data, leveraging labels. Actually, no, with Tempo, we just use kind of the trace ID, and then combining that with logs and traces and some new features that we've just been recently added to Prometheus, you can go straight from metrics or logs straight into a trace, which is just really helps with that whole workflow for troubleshooting issues and working out what's happening in your environment. And then
do these? Sorry, carry on. Sorry.
No, that's fine.
Do these all work together or separate from each other, or?
So they can be separate, but work better together. And that's also where we've seen on our enterprise side. So we obviously invest very heavily in the open source, but then we have our enterprise products as well. And that's what we announced back in February was our Grafana Enterprise Stack, which is delivering, the enterprise versions on top of these open source solutions. And so you get all the features and capabilities of the open source, plus we layer in, some of the key kind of security and compliance features that organizations need. And then obviously the enterprise support part, and we add in some extra things around kind of scalability, where we see some very large scale on some of these enterprise customers that need a few extra things. But again, it's that having that, integration of all the pieces together. You've always kind of been able to do the individual components, but the feedback definitely we've had from customers is they don't want pieces of their observability stack. They just want a solution. And so that's what we're really happy to kind of have that kind of turnkey solution for them.
So let's go. I'm always fascinated to know that transition from an open source project to a commercial product and when it happens and why. So first, we should say you have two products: Grafana Cloud and Grafana Enterprise Stack. So Cloud came first, I guess.
Cloud came first. When we started the company, that was the vision. We wanted to have a SaaS-based company. We didn't really even envision having, the enterprise offering, but obviously customers wanted that. So, so that's why we kind of invested it. But we certainly, in the industry, cloud, and service, SaaS-based services as being the future. And so that's, where we, work really hard. And it's also actually really benefit our enterprise, where we have great understanding of how to run these new systems, especially for the enterprise metrics and enterprise logs, where we are running at scale in cloud. We've run into a lot of challenges along the way. We've had to learn, and we've been able to take those lessons learned and put them into a product, so that our customers don't have to go through that pain themselves. So we have the cloud, and that's the kind of complete solution. So the metrics, the logs, the Grafana, and we also have a beta of the traces as well.
Okay. And is that hosted by? I'm leading into some questions here because this is often a problem a lot of companies like yourselves have at the moment. Is that hosted by yourself, or is that hosted by other cloud providers?
Yeah, I mean, so we run on the major cloud providers, to deliver the service. Yeah, definitely Raj, our CEO, both him and I have a background, in data centers and hosting. So, we understand that, but it's a big challenge. Cloud providers, give us some capabilities and kind of help reduce, some of the costs and overhead that we want to avoid, and just can focus on products and features. And that's working very well. And so we have the major cloud providers, to provide, some support for that to run it. But it works very well.
When did you decide to offer the cloud version as well? Was it always there, or was it relatively recent, or
it's been there?
How long was an open source project first, I guess, is the simpler way of putting that question.
Yeah, definitely. So it's probably, I'm just trying to think, it's been a while now. So the open source project probably a year or two before we launched any products, and we started off kind of small. We had a product called WorldPing, which is like a synthetic monitoring type solution that we didn't originally plan to build our own time series storage for it, but we did, and that's kind of what kicked off the cloud. And then we kind of built on top of that, and then as we saw the kind of popularity of Prometheus and the explosion in that, we then shifted to bringing capabilities for that offering as well, and focus on storing that, and then had developed more of a vision around just observability, platform and everything we needed to do. A lot of that was driven by Tom Wilkie, who he's one of the kind of co-authors of the Cortex project. He started before he joined Grafana Labs, and since he's joined Grafana Labs, he's been able to kind of continue that and kind of build on his vision there, bring in the logs and tracing as well.
Okay. And so Enterprise Stack is quite obviously very recent. I mean, you said February. That was 2 weeks ago, effectively, depending when in February. So how long did you know you needed it, and then how long did it take to develop it?
Yeah, so we started off early quite a few years ago, on the Grafana with Grafana Enterprise, and initially that was just around, enterprise support for customers that we started with. And we just had that trend because we had, customers who really loved Grafana, and they would just come to us and say, hey, this is a fantastic product. We love it. How can we give you money? How can we pay for something? And so, that's where we started. And then, we built on top of that, adding in additional features, from working with these customers that they really need to differentiate the product. We launched the enterprise metrics piece last year in September or October, and then the logs piece we launched back in February along with the enterprise stack announcement. So they're all fairly recent, and the delay there is mostly around us just developing the maturity in those products themselves and kind of getting to that confidence level where we're happy to be able to provide this to customers to run on-prem and be able to support it, because it's a little bit easier to support when it's in the cloud where you can quickly fix things and before they become a problem for end users. But when you're dealing with on-prem software, you really want to make sure it's a bit more polished. The reliability is there because it's we can't just dive in and fix things straight away. So we want to make sure that it just works. And so that's kind of where the delay is, and we're happy. We're really confident with the product itself, and we've certainly had great feedback from our customers that it's in a good state.
Okay. And I mean, how's it been going so far?
In
a very short period of time, how's it been going so far?
It has been going really great. I mean, certainly the enterprise metrics piece, we're seeing some fantastic adoption there. And surprisingly very large scale customers, larger than we even thought, which is great. Scaling problems are the best engineering problems to work on. So it's been fun to be able to meet the challenges of customers that they have and enable them to do more with their metrics and kind of exceed what was capable for them on the open source offering. And so, customers are really happy and we're really happy. So things are definitely working there. The team is very busy, adding new features and supporting customers. So I think that's definitely what we want to see. And it's still early on the logs, but we're also seeing very good, positive signals from customers there as well who have started trialing it out.
So this is also something that interests me a lot when it comes to the kind of open source company and SaaS product on top of it. How do you decide what features will make the open source versus the SaaS versions, and to everyone's mutual benefit, I suppose, without offending one audience or another?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, so the split between what goes in our commercial offering versus open source, it's always a balancing act, and we've been pretty happy with how we approach that. We've had a pretty straight, very simple approach to it, where we look at features and we just consider whether they're valuable to the majority of the community, or are they only valuable to very large organizations or very large users. And so if they something that will benefit the whole community, then we'll put it in open source. But if it's really something that's only useful for a more niche kind of environment, typically enterprise customers are people at really large scale, then that's something that we'll put into the enterprise product. And then for cloud and our enterprise offering, we typically go cloud first for most things. A lot around kind of developing maturity, giving us opportunity to make sure everything's working in a more kind of controlled environment, and then move them into enterprise. But we're definitely seeing convergence there between the two, and long term it will just be one product with just a choice over where you want it deployed.
Okay. And I guess we should ask, what's on the roadmap for Grafana? And then what's next on the roadmap for the enterprise stack?
Definitely.
That it's only just been released, but what's on the roadmap for both of them in the next sort of 6 months?
On Grafana, obviously we're continually, innovating there, and certainly on the open source, to bring in new features. So we've got lots of work happening there around, just new visualizations, new panel types, building on the navigation and usability, making it, easier for people to, get things done. Grafana is really powerful and has a lot of features, but we still see, new users sometimes struggle with what to do. And so we're focusing on, some of these pieces just to make it easier for them to get started and kind of, be able to kind of work out what it is that they need to do to get to the dashboards, and get the insights that they want. I'm just trying to think. There's a few other kind of major pieces, that we're kind of focusing on. One thing that the team is very excited about is, it's not really user facing, but finally kind of moving all of the legacy Angular kind of components out, and now we're kind of everything's all React now, which is been a huge effort from the team to try and get that done. A lot of kind of technical complexity there. On the cloud front and enterprise front, our Tempo, so tracing product is something that we're focusing on. We have a beta available in the cloud now, and we're trying to just refine that, get more feedback from users, and make sure things working. And then we expect that'll then transition across to enterprise this year sometime. In general, on enterprise, we're continuing to focus on kind of bringing the stack together. So bringing in features that kind of just level up what you can do, knowing that you've got the reliable metric storage and log storage. We can build in some really nice features that kind of glue that together and just make it much easier for administrators to enable their users to do more. We've gone through this experience ourselves, running the cloud platform, of trying to just get all the pieces together and kind of make everything work and easy to manage. And, we're putting that in as, actual product features. And so we've got some nice features to ship logs from one, from each application, and then build, visualization. So you can kind of have that self-monitoring, self-reporting, understanding how your environment is working, be able to do things like chargeback, to different teams, etc. So kind of focusing on that. Yeah. And then also the auth piece as well, which is really important. So kind of extending that out to have, more fine-grained, access control. So you can limit people where you want to, and then also be able to give people access to as much data as you as an organization is able to do.
So in the sort of 5 minutes we have left, I wanted to talk more broadly in 5 minutes around this observability space generally. Even on the show, I've had, including you, at least 3 or 4 companies and open source projects in this space, and they all work in slightly different ways. Again, why do you think this is really the observability's time? It almost feels like every week, I don't know about every week, but we're hearing about an acquisition of one, a new project, a new announcement. Is it again just the timing, the sort of manifestation of Kubernetes everywhere and lots of services and things, or is there something else? Why is it so busy at the moment as a space?
I mean, I agree, right? It is a space that is exploding at the moment. And I think, timing is a big part of it. I think, we've had kind of the early adopters, have kind of pioneered this and, been able to talk about the benefits and why it's important. And I think, the key message around, that I feel is that, very simple. If you don't measure it, you can't improve it, right? Because how do you know that you're getting better unless you're measuring something? So, people have kind of realized that, and then there is so much that you can measure that does impact your business, right? Very simple things, that people, kind of just ignored, or they just, go with a gut feeling. Whereas now, by having those more kind of objective measures, you can see what, small changes you have, on your application, what impact that has on your business. And so you can kind of refine that. We've certainly seen, COVID, has kind of driven a lot of, effort to, be able to understand how environments are working and see where there's opportunity to cut costs or scale things down. And so that's certainly happened over the last 12 months. We've certainly seen that with our customers where they're really motivated to try and better understand their environment so they can see areas that they can focus on to get the most out of their money.
And I mean, there's a lot of different ways of doing this monitoring. Obviously, you have your own projects, so you might be slightly biased towards those. But has there been any announcements in the space that have made you just say, "Oh, I wish we'd done that, that really kind of made you think that's a really interesting way of doing it as opposed to the way we did it. Yes.
Yeah. So, I mean, certainly not recently, but, I think like when we started, certainly on our SaaS platform, we started with a graphite compatible metric storage, which is kind of the old, I think 2006, I think is when it was created. It has a very simple data model. But then Prometheus came about, Influx came about. Basically, every new time series kind of tool since then has all been label based, right? Where you have a measurement and then key value pairs to make it much easier to find things. And that's definitely been really powerful and kind of supported people. And we were fortunate, right, at the time where we could just make a decision, say, hey, that is better. Let's go and do that as well, right, and bring it in. So we still support graphite on our stack, but we certainly see the growth, on the Prometheus side, and it, from personal use, it does, make things much easier to be able to, drill down to specifically what you want and understand the data that you actually have, because you can see if you've got a value, you know what it is, right? Oh, that's the data center name. Oh, great. I can kind of filter based on that. So that's helped really well. And then, on top of that, there's certainly some new tools that are coming around that are quite interesting. So, we're really happy with the kind of foundational pieces with the metrics and the logs and the tracing. And then, we're looking for, how we can bring in more data and, more insights to kind of support people. So there's definitely some interesting things we're looking at. One of the great things with Grafana is we don't have to go and build all these things ourselves. We can just integrate with what's already out there, and kind of enable our users to get the benefit of everything and have that single pane view of their total, whole environment without having to put all their data in one place, because that generally doesn't work because different data needs to be in different places, but still being able to bring it all into one place is really where the value of it comes, where you can really use it to better understand what's happening in your environment.
So just to wrap up, I mean, if anyone wants to try Grafana, Prometheus, Cortex, etc., they're all open source, so go crazy. I think the cloud offering I saw, there is a free version if people want to try. Enterprise stack, not so much, but
definitely we have a very generous free tier on our Grafana Cloud platform that will give you, users the ability to, start using it, actually put some real kind of workloads on it to get benefits out of it, and be able to see, how well it works and how well it can help them accelerate it, what they're doing, especially kind of new teams that are starting up. It can be a lot of effort to go and build out a complete observability stack. And the benefit of Grafana Cloud is that it's built on these open source tools. It's familiar, but you can just get going straight away without having to worry about keeping all the backend systems running.
And also in the wider ecosystem, you mentioned about Grafana, especially with the different dashboards, people can go and create dashboards and things like that too, which is a sort of slightly different way of being involved, but it's an option as well.
Definitely. I mean, so we have on our grafana.com site. So obviously, you can go there for all the information about, the products and services that we have. As part of that, we have obviously the plugin catalog that lists all the different, plugins and kind of integrations where you can pull data from, different visualization panels, so different ways of extending Grafana that are published there. And there's also like a dashboard catalog as well, where people have gone and created dashboards for common services and systems that you can use that to quickly kind of accelerate getting everything set up, and not have to kind of start from scratch and kind of build everything yourself.
Cool. Thanks very much for your time. It's an exciting space at the moment. Sometimes talking about observability doesn't sound very interesting, but it's a very buzzy, exciting space right now. Even if sometimes the subject matter itself can seem like, what we're observing is sometimes not the most interesting things to talk about, but the space itself is very exciting. So it's a very busy time. I also recommend people go back and see or listen to previous episodes I had with Cilium and Pixie, who have now been acquired. So go back and have a listen to some of those. it's all they've all been, I think, in the past few months. So that's what I mean by the space is kind of lots of different things happening. But thanks very much for your time. Any closing words you just want to add?
No, it's been great talking to you. Thanks for giving me the opportunity. And hopefully we'll be able to talk again in future when we have new projects or new interesting things to talk about.
Thank you very much.